Welcome back to the channel where today we're diving into your list, yes yours, of the absolute worst cities in the United States. I ran a survey and I asked which cities you had visited were the absolute worst. Oh boy, you didn't hold back. Some of these cities have crime rates so high you'll think I'm making things up. Others have housing markets so bad they could double as a financial horror story. And a few, well, they're just depressing enough to make you start Googling cheapest towns in Canada at 2:00 a.m. We're talking about cities where the revitalization plan is basically just painting a mural on an abandoned building and hoping people think it's the new Apple headquarters. Places where the population is dropping faster than your faith in humanity after listening to 5 or 6 true crime podcasts. This video is ranked on the survey, and the comments came from the community post where I asked the same
I like
question.
your new porch lights.
Got it?
Oh, thank you
Get
so
it?
much.
Good. Let's take a look. Musical number 10, Stockton, California. Stockton is the California dream if your dream involves bankruptcy and wondering where all the jobs went. Once a booming inland port city, Stockton managed to go broke, literally filing for bankruptcy in 2012, while sitting in one of the most fertile agricultural regions in the country. Hopes and dreams are on back order here. Crime here isn't just a concern.
These look so good.
It's part of the local culture with violent
like
crime
home.
rates around 217%, above the national average, and property crimes that make you wonder if anyone bothers locking their doors anymore. The city has tried revitalizing its downtown, but most of those projects seem to involve adding murals instead of actually fixing issues. Add in high unemployment rates, a struggling school system, and a cost of living that makes you wonder if you accidentally moved to the Bay Area without the Bay Area paycheck or the ocean breeze. At that point, Stockton should become a hard sell. And yes, it's still 100 miles from San Francisco, but that'll take you 2 to 3 hours because it's California traffic. Now, here's the kicker. This town does suck when you look at the numbers in the entire city, really. But the real estate is about average for the country. The average home value here is about $440,000. They're breaking the suckage to real estate ecosystem. When you suck, you're supposed to have cheap homes, not Stockton. They're trying to keep average when they should be well below average. To the left of Bernie said Stockton, California. How long of a list do you want? This guy's going to name all the problems with the place. Musical number 9, Camden, New Jersey. If Camden were a movie, it would be Escape from New York. Except there's no Snake Plissken to save you. Once a proud manufacturing hub, Camden collapsed under the weight of job losses, political corruption, and crime so bad, it became a national punchline in the early 2000s. Like this gem I used in a video before. What's the difference between Camden, New Jersey, and the Vietnam War? The Vietnam War had fewer shootings. Things have improved slightly thanks to an influx of law enforcement and redevelopment money, but slightly doesn't erase decades of decline and bullet wounds. They had a violent crime rate that was 453% above the national average 5 years ago. Right now, it's 365% above. That is an improvement, but it's like, do you see a difference in the tide if you take a bucket of water out of the ocean? No, you don't. The poverty rate still hovers around 30%, and the median household income is less than half the national average. If you're raising a family here, you'd better invest in some good door locks and patience for underfunded schools. Camden's waterfront has seen some shiny new attractions like the aquarium, the minor league baseball stadium, but venture more than a few blocks away from those places, and you're back to the reality of boarded-up row houses and streets that feel abandoned. It's a city still fighting to breathe, but for most people, it's not where they choose to settle down anymore. They move right on if they can afford it. Musical number 8, Gary, Indiana. Gary is the poster child for what happens when one industry owns a city's soul and then skips town. Built on steel, Gary thrived for decades. But when the mills closed and automation took over, the jobs vanished. The robots still had jobs. I guess what's left is a shell of a city with a population that dropped from 178,000 in 1960 to under 70,000 today. Drive through Gary and you'll see blocks of abandoned houses, crumbling factories, and streets that look like the set of The Walking Dead. Property values are dirt cheap, so you gotta give them that. But there's a reason for that. You'd be paying more in home repairs and security than your actual mortgage. Crime remains a serious concern here. While some locals have tried to revive the city through art programs and small business initiatives, it's an uphill battle against decades of neglect. Gary has history and grit. But in the where should I live conversation, it usually is a cautionary tale. Descending said, Gary, Indiana only passed through it, but it was probably the single bleakest area I have ever been through. That's usually the feeling most people that have driven through, Gary. That's what they say it's like. It's pretty sad. Number 7. New Orleans, Louisiana. 2. New Orleans is one of those cities that tourists adore. Jazz in the French Quarter, heavy drinking, and Mardi Gras flying through the air. But once you step outside the postcard shots, the picture changes fast. For residents, life in New Orleans can be an exhausting balancing act between charm and chaos. The crime rate is consistently among the highest in the country, especially violent crime. Carjackings, armed robberies, and shootings aren't rare. They're part of the news cycle daily. Then there's the infrastructure, or lack thereof. The streets are petard with potholes that could swallow a scooter hole. Public services are stretched thin, and the cost of living isn't as low as you'd expect it to be for a city with so many issues. Tourists bring money, sure, but most of that cash stays in the French Quarter while the rest of the city keeps struggling. I was just there a couple years ago. I've never seen roads that bad. I was there in the late 90s also. I couldn't believe that they let the roads get that bad. It was incredible. I mean, not in a good way. Oh my God. I've been to third world countries where the roads were better, and sometimes there were dirt roads better than paved roads in New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is undeniably unique, but it's also a place where you have to accept a lot of daily headaches just to enjoy those perks. For many of you, that's a trade-off that's really not worth it. Bradley said New Orleans, the desperation in some of the people's eyes was disturbing. It was well into the opioid epidemic. Music. Number 6, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is the kind of city that makes you wish time travel was real. Not so you can go back and see Elvis in his prime or alive for that matter, but so you could go back and stop the city from making half the decisions it made in the last 40 years. This place has some incredible history, from the blues to Beale Street to the birthplace of rock and roll. Some people argue that won, but because of Elvis, a lot of people think that. These days, it's making headlines for crime, poverty, and a murder rate that could make a crime drama producer take notes. The crime situation here is no joke. Memphis consistently ranks near the top of the most dangerous cities in America. With violent crime rates more than 3 times the national average. Entire neighborhoods have been left behind by economic decline. And even in tourist-friendly areas, you'll see boarded-up buildings mixed with barbecue joints. Yeah, you see a barbecue place usually right next to an abandoned building. Not usually. You do see them. It's kind of strange. And speaking of barbecue, yes, Memphis has some good barbecue, but it's not enough to offset the city's problems. The school system struggles, the infrastructure is aging, and the job market isn't exactly booming. Summers are sweltering and humid, winters are gloomy, and the Mississippi River flooding risk doesn't help matters either. Memphis does have its loyal residents who wouldn't leave for anything, but for most people, living here would be more of a headache than a home. Linda and Andrew said, Memphis? No explanation needed. Musical. Number 5, Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland's nickname might be the land, but for years it felt more like the land that time forgot. Once a manufacturing giant, Cleveland suffered the same Rust Belt decline as Detroit and Gary. Job losses, a shrinking population, and crime drove the city into a decades-long slump. The infamous Cuyahoga River fire in 1969 still haunts Cleveland's reputation, even though the city's made environmental progress since then. Now, it probably doesn't help that I bring it up every time I mention Cleveland, but I find that story just so amazing. I mean, I've talked about it at length before on this channel, but the water caught fire. The water was so polluted it caught fire. I mean, other things did too, but the water was actually burning. Don't they understand that water is what you use to put out fires? Anyway, the pollution isn't the only issue. Poverty, Underfunded schools and infrastructure problems keep Cleveland from hitting its full potential. They are working on some things. Got a long freaking way to go, but they are working on some things. Like downtown has seen some investment and sports fans have something to cheer about occasionally. But outside those pockets of improvement, much of Cleveland still struggles with blight and crime. Locals have grit, but the question is whether grit is enough to carry you through winter after winter of lake effect snow. Bobby Rich said, Cleveland, Ohio, dreary atmosphere, gray skies, crumbling buildings. It felt oppressive. Your music number 4, San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino has been called the Detroit of the West, and it's not said in a flattering way like that could be said in a flattering way. Once a growing inland empire city, it collapsed under the weight of budget mismanagement, rising crime, and a housing market crash that hit like a wrecking ball. The city declared bankruptcy also in 2012 and has struggled to recover ever since. Unemployment remains high, crime rates are well above the average, and the homeless crisis is impossible to ignore. The city's downtown is a mix of boarded-up storefronts and the occasional government building with little in the way of night life or culture to keep people around. Just don't. Oh, yeah? Nick Johnson, who's done some videos on his hometown, will tell you all about it. The location should be a selling point. You're an hour or so from Los Angeles in the mountains, but most people see San Bernardino as a place you pass through, not a place you put down roots. They have a violent crime rate that's 194% above the national average. That's rough. Scott Wang said, Sendo, California. The whole city feels like a dumping ground. That's accurate. Musical number 3, Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore is a city of extremes, incredible historic architecture, and one of the worst homicide rates in the country. The Inner Harbor looks great on a postcard, but head in a few blocks and you're in neighborhoods still waiting for the 21st century to catch up. The city has been plagued by political scandals, corruption, and a revolving door of police commissioners. The opioid crisis hit hard here, adding another layer to an already high crime rate. Schools are underfunded, and the city's population has been shrinking for years. There's a passionate local community working to improve things. And Baltimore's food scene is pretty legit with their crab cakes. But it's worth a visit, but not a place you want to live. Many residents will tell you it's a constant uphill fight to get things done in this city. Eric Solitaire said something that really doesn't make a lot of sense. But if I'm reading this right, they chose Baltimore and then they said they were there decades ago. Then they said, down on the wharf has always been historically dicey. I think that's a negative review of Baltimore. I could be wrong. Musical number 2, Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham's history is deeply tied to the steel industry. And when the industry went south, so did the city's fortunes. Poverty rates remain high, and the city's violent crime rate is one of the worst in the country. Their violent crime rate right now is 270% above the national average. That's brutal. Public schools are inconsistent, and infrastructure hasn't kept up with modern needs. Despite efforts at revitalization, especially in the downtown area, much of the city still struggles with blight, unemployment, and a reputation that scares away potential newcomers. On top of that, Birmingham summers are brutal, and the pollen count will have allergy sufferers questioning their doctor about induced comas for the next 4 or 5 months. There is charm here if you look hard enough. But the problems, they're not hard to find. They're on the surface and in your face. Danica F6 chose Birmingham. We went to see the Civil Rights Museum. I parked a few blocks away. A man ran up to me and my son and asked me what I was doing. He ended up walking us to the museum. He said it was not safe. Before entering, we stopped for water. When we walked in, everyone stopped talking and watched us. We bought our water and left. It was very, very strange. All right, before we get to number 1, if you've not subscribed to this channel, we'd love it if you did. Also, leave us a comment. Tell me what city you think should have been on here. Put that in the comment section below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Los Angeles. Congratulations, Los Angeles. According to you, it's the worst city in America. Now, here's the thing about this one. Los Angeles won because people started naming a lot of the suburbs. I mean, North Hollywood, Compton, Wilmington, They were all in there and people had something to say about each one of them. Now Los Angeles is weird. These are suburbs. They're their own cities, but everyone looks at it as just part of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is huge in these little pockets. We got some pretty rundown cities. So, it's not like other big cities where they just have neighborhoods and maybe some boroughs. We have individual cities pocketed around Los Angeles with downtown Awali not being that big. So, before everyone in Los Angeles starts yelling, I'm not just talking about the gritty parts you see in movies. We're talking about the yellow most people actually deal with. Now let's just kind of break some of them down. You have North Hollywood, which isn't that bad. Which really is bad is Hollywood itself. That's where you'll find the Walk of Fame and all that garbage. It's just a tourist trap. It's filled with crime. It's dirty. Don't ever go there. And I'm not even getting into the traffic and the parking nightmare and all that stuff. Rent prices will make you cry and you don't even want to live there. I have comedian friends that lived in that area. They told me how much they were paying back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and they hated every day. It was a shoebox and they were paying through the nose. Some of these apartments haven't had a fresh coat of paint since Reagan was in office, and they're still charging people $3,000 a month. But then you have Compton. People kept bringing up Compton, and Compton is bad. It's not great, but it's not the Compton of the 1990s. It's okay as far as bad neighborhoods go. If you were to tell me Compton or ask me what the worst city in Los Angeles was in the 1990s, almost anyone would say Compton. These days, there's a whole bunch of cities in the Los Angeles metro area that are way worse than Compton. Then you got places Wilmington. People brought up Wilmington for some reason. Wilmington is basically a harbor with some cities, and there's a serious gang issue down there. But if you go there, it looks like garbage. Yeah, and most of it's big oil drums and seaport and warehouses. So I don't know. People kept mentioning it. It sucks, but not a lot of people live there. But Los Angeles overall, it does suck. And it doesn't just suck for crime, because if you compare it to some of the other cities like on this list and cities around the country, their crime rate isn't really that bad. They actually rank 56th in the nation for violent crime. Property crime is a little bit different. They rank 27th. That's because we got a whole bunch of homeless, which we do. And the homeless is another part of the situation in Los Angeles that make it look really bad. And visitors show up and they see this and they're like, what the hell? Especially if you go to Skid Row. A couple people brought up Skid Row. Skid Row is actually part of Little Tokyo neighborhood near downtown Los Angeles. So Little Tokyo looks like they've got this horrible crime rate, which really, that's all of it's happening in a 2-block block area that happens to be part Little Tokyo. You go 4 blocks away from Skid Row in Little Tokyo, and it's a wonderful place to visit. It's weird. It's really strange. So, this one's kind of weird, but it got voted number 1. And then there's the price. You know, the price is another thing. The cost of living in Los Angeles is brutal for tourists, for people living there. You want to stay at a hotel, it's probably going to be $100 more than just about any place else. Unless it's someplace on Skid Row then, and that's got its own bucket of problems. So, I get why Los Angeles is on here when you look at it as a whole. But it's not the most dangerous place. Just got homeless. It's expensive. Traffic sucks. And there's areas that look just horrible. But they made the list at the number 1 spot at that. User KG3 chose Los Angeles and said, can't see it all.
Ever wonder
Covered
why
in
your
smog.
imported coffee,
So
phone,
gross.
or car just
Kind
got
of does.
pricier in 2025?
That kind of puts Los Angeles
That's
in a
not
nutshell.
inflation, that's
But
tariffs.
in reality, I grew
And
up
the
there.
U.S. just dropped one of its
Smog
most
used to be
aggressive
so
tariff
much
lists
worse.
in recent
It's
history.
actually really nice
First
compared
up,
to what it
Brazil.
used to be.
They've been
All
slapped
right,
with a massive
that's
50%
today's video.
import tariff.
Hope you guys
mainly
enjoyed it.
targeting beef,
Hope you got some
soy,
information
ethanol.
out of it.
Why?
Now go out, have a great
Trade
day.
imbalance.
Be nice to each other.
America's saying
The crime.
if you tax our
Situ.
goods, we'll tax yours more.
Birmingham.
Then there's Syria.
I've said it a million
hit with
times in my
41%
life, and I can't
tariff,
say it
one
today.
of the highest across
Birmingham.
the board. Not just political.
Birmingham,
it's
Alabama.
economic leverage.
I'm going
You're
to get
basically
it
paying for
someday
global
eventually.
diplomacy every time you buy a
my
product from
phone's
there.
vibrating.
China is
The
a
rain in
giant
Spain
this
falls
war.
mainly on the plane.
While the average
I haven't
tariff
done
is around
enough videos
30%,
on Spain
it
thinking
spikes
of
up
that.
to 100%
Does it rain
on
there
electric
much?
vehicles.
I mean, I was
And
in
as
New
high as
Orleans a couple years ago, and I went to
145% for
I can't
semiconductors.
tell that story on
If your
here.
gadgets or
Yeah.
tech accessories got
Stay away from that
expensive
story.
overnight,
No,
blame this.
better not.
Canada